Glenn Youngkin says Virginia's National Guard troops will not be patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C. This comes after President Trump deployed the Guard in Washington, D.C. WDBJ7's Layla Mitchell reports how this is raising some questions about presidential power.
The National Guard may be in Washington, but experts say the real fight is over whether troops end up in other major cities. Radford professor Chapman Rackaway says while Trump points to crime and homelessness, the move is also tied to immigration enforcement and may be a test run for broader action.
So D.C. kind of becomes this interesting place where the president can experiment with expanding his executive power. And that's why this has to go to the courts, hence the lawsuit.
Washington, D.C. has filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration over its attempt to take over the city's police force. If courts allow it, Rackaway says cities like Philadelphia, Chicago, or San Francisco could be next. But a piece of 1800s legislation might stand in the way, known as the Posse Comitatus Act. It limits what presidents can do with military forces in states and cities, D.C. being the exception.
If the courts side with the president and say that he can do these things in Washington, D.C., then it may provide an opportunity for him to say, well, if it's going to work here in Washington, D.C., if I can do it here in Washington, D.C., maybe I can try it in another city that's been on his radar.
Critics say the Guard's presence is as much about optics and intimidation as it is about safety.
The National Guard as a police force supplement feels very alien to a lot of Americans, and it really kind of grates against what most people think about the typical life here in the U.S. We're not used to a militarized homeland.
So far, hundreds of arrests have been made since the Guard entered D.C., and experts say the court's decision and long-term impacts could reshape how presidents use power over America's cities.
It is not President Trump alone, but the precedent that this sets for us into the next century, because it severely runs against the constitutional principles that have guided this country for 200 plus years.
In Roanoke, Layla Mitchell, WDBJ 7.